Hello. The title of this podcast is The Desired Outcome Comes if the Process is There. I had the great pleasure of attending a Grand Rounds talk this morning, thanks to the invitation that I received from my good friend, Dr. John DeCuna. And the speaker that he invited was Dr. Robert Cerfolio. And he did an outstanding job talking about leadership, and much of which was spent on working on yourself. But when he got to the slide, and there were so many that resonated with me, I took notes on this one. And again, it is the desired outcome comes if the process is there. When I think about some of the things that I put in place for my own life, uh, if I did all the other things that would give me the greatest likelihood of accomplishing a certain goal. If I did those things, it was no surprise that I accomplished the goal. But part of that, before I started working on myself in a way that made being kind, being loving, being peaceful the goal, the priority. Before I started doing all that, a lot of what I did was really my own self-interest. And with that came the pain of if I didn't accomplish the goal, what that would feel like, or being anxious about all the necessary steps that I need to take to accomplish the goal. I got to study hard. I got to work really hard. If I didn't get the expected outcome, I would find myself suffering, beating myself up over it, falling short, ruminating about what I didn't do that I could have done or should have done to reach the goal. There was just a lot of suffering involved. When I started doing the practice that I do now, which has been over 10 years, I let go of being attached to the outcome. And what I focused on was doing things that I thought or that I was taught that would help produce that particular goal. And I stayed true and steadfast and being really diligent about executing on whatever those things were. And I was detached from the outcome. So an example of that would be is that before I started doing the well-being practice, I complained a lot, I judged a lot. So I recognized or realized that's not how I wanted to show up. Instead, how I want to show up is I want to show up with loving, kind. Now I want to have high standards for myself, but how other people show up, that's their path. Whereas before, I thought that was my path to dictate how other people need to show up too. And that's different from like inviting people to live up to a certain standard as opposed to trying to exert not influence, but trying to exert pressure and coercion to do that. But that's how I used to do it in the past. But instead, I want to live in a completely different way. And to do that, I set up a process, and we talked about my morning process that I do to show up the best way that I can, and how I end my night with the practice of reading a page out of the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living book, uh, doing some level of exercise, listening to inspiring podcasts of faith-based talk, not listening to the news, being really accountable to my friends, and if I didn't mention it, the gratitude practice. So that's part of my process, and then throughout the day, I apply all those things because I wanted to go from complaining like it was one of my superpowers to being kind like it was like breathing for me. Like that was my new superpower to connect, to meet people with an open heart, to be completely interested in other people, to support their goals without any kind of expectation that they owe me something in return. And in the climate that we have now, I think having a process or practice can be very useful if you're clear about what you want to do. And with people telling me, because I'm not reading about it or seeing it on the news, that it seems like the world is even more divided, particularly here in our country. That's not what I'm experiencing. And it's not that I am immune to what's going on, But rather, I'm really focusing on the things that I can control, which is also part of my process, recognizing what I can control. And what I can control is being loving and kind and open-hearted to everybody, regardless of what they believe, who they voted for, what direction they think we should be going into, or if they think we're on the wrong foot. Uh, that's somebody else's path. That's not my path. My path is to show up a way that helps contribute, hopefully, to everyone by being an amazing neighbor, a good friend, and a kind stranger, if you don't consider me a friend. And I would invite you all to really think about that. Does your process, is it yielding the outcome that you would like? Now, again, I'm detached from the outcome, but what I found is that takes care of the suffering and obsessive part of having a goal or wanting a certain outcome. That takes care of that, which we're grateful for by being detached. Uh, with that being said, there's still the process, and that process, while I'm detached from the outcome, has yielded the desired outcome. Go figure. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And I encourage you to design a process for yourself and be true to it. And hopefully it's one that is rooted in being loving and being kind and giving to everyone.